And welcome back to Studio 2 on WHYY. I'm Avi Wolfman-Arent.
And I'm Cherry Gregg. We've been talking about scams this hour. They are getting more sophisticated, harder to spot, and are causing enormous amounts of financial and emotional damage. Still with us is Bob Sullivan, host of the AARP podcast, The Perfect Scam. And now we want to welcome in Eric ONeill, a former FBI counterintelligence operative and author of Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime. Eric, welcome to Studio 2.
Cherry, Avi, great to be here. And Bob, good to be on the show with you.
And we would love to keep hearing from you in our audience. We want to hear if you have a scam story to share or how you protect yourself from falling victim to scams. 888-477-9499 is the number. The email is studio2@whyy.org. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, as always, leave a comment in the chat.
And so, Eric, we want to bring you into the conversation by sort of starting with where scams fall on the priority list for law enforcement. Because a lot of times we see these types of things proliferate because they're not necessarily being given top priority. In your commentary on that.
Well, they're not. And I wish that they were given higher priority, but you have so many law enforcement officers and so many things that they are tracking down. And scams are very difficult for law enforcement. The anonymity of the dark web makes it very easy for cyber criminals and scammers and fraudsters to launch attacks in places that have no extradition to the U.S. And in fact, countries like Russia and China, two of the biggest threat actors against the United States, allow their cyber criminals to attack us with impunity and very rarely take any action against them. It's only when there is incredible pressure from our administration here and we can see them, and usually it's a critical infrastructure like attack. So, what I've been saying for all these years is that we need to protect ourselves. We need to be the first line of defense against these scams. We are not going to, unfortunately, have law enforcement ride in and stop them. Now, they try. They do go into the dark web. They do smash their servers. They steal their decryption keys. They hand them out like Halloween candy to people who have been locked by ransomware. But bad guys have backups too. And what they do is they just restore from backup. They use the same cybersecurity tactics of resilience, and they come back and they rebrand with a new name and launch attacks again.
Wow. I want to bring in another caller now. This is Barbara from Mount Laurel on line 3. Hey, Barbara, do you have a story to share about being scammed or an attempted scam?
Yes, I do. I had a shocking discovery this year when I noticed on my Medicare statements that over $50,000 had been attributed to me for an operation in Florida. It took many phone calls with Medicare to even get some information from them. And I found out that the scam was through a company that was charging Medicare $18,000 for wound care dressings for my gender reassignment surgery. Mm-hmm. And Medicare not only paid it once, but after they were notified, they paid it again a couple months later, and now they're paying for my dialysis treatments from my gender reassignment surgery.
Wow, and you are not getting any of these services, correct? Just to be clear.
I'm a 74-year-old woman in New Jersey who's never been to Delray Beach, Florida. I checked on the internet. I found out that this company is just a P.O. box down in Florida. They've scammed people through my secondary insurance companies, lost $2 billion.
Wow.
Because they pay the 20% that Medicare doesn't pay. Wow. But I've reported it to everyone from my state senators, congressmen, the federal agencies, the Medicare. No, they just keep paying them. Meanwhile, the Medicare refused to pay my $90 chiropractor bill.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad at the very least you were able to get some resolution on the phony charges, and I'm sorry that the legitimate charges are still causing you issues. Thank you so much, Barbara from Mount Laurel.
Yes, everyone should check their statements.
Absolutely.
Be very vigilant about checking your Medicare statements if you're a senior.
Yeah,
Thank you.
kick this back to you, Eric ONeill. You talked about protecting yourself. So what can you do to protect yourself?
So Barbara brings up...
Barbara says, check your statements. I guess that's a place to start.
She brings up an incredibly important point that I think everyone right now needs to have that identity theft monitoring. It's like installing cybersecurity. It's that early warning system that someone has stolen your identity, has your social security number, has your credit card, and is using it for fraud, because that early warning and then you can take action fast is one of the most important things to do. Barbara, if I were you, I would freeze my credit. You can go to each of the main credit agencies and request that they freeze. Now, actually, they make it easy. You can go online, use an account. Do not lose your password or two-factor authentication because it's very hard to get it back. And you can actually just toggle it on and off if you need to open up a credit card or get credit. But freezing those your credit with those three agencies can help a lot. And this Medicare scam is like so many other scams where attackers are inserting them in a process that people rely on, and they know that there is a lot of fraud and abuse in Medicare, and they exploit that. And at the same time, they're using identities that they steal in order to file these false and sometimes malicious claims. And you see these PO boxes where people, and sometimes they're not even in the United States, are using them. And sometimes they hire people. They have criminals here in the U.S. who help facilitate it on their behalf. And they're pretty large and sophisticated gangs. And I'll just add, law enforcement has trouble with this too. The IC3, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, just issued a statement today that scammers are pretending to be the IC3 and are reaching out to people saying, you've been the victim of a cybercrime. Wow. We're the FBI, and we're here to help you, and then scamming them.
Wow. I want to read this comment. Margaret says the pervasive power of scams can result in mistrust of factual information and offers of help people have requested. I was a volunteer, she says, calling to provide help to voters who have requested help with problems filling out mail-in ballots this fall. In a few cases, the individuals thought I could be an AI rather than a real person. And when I offered to text links to official PA voter information websites, some people worried that the website could be fake. So I want to sort of talk about that a little bit. Can you give us some red flags? Because Bob talked about this earlier, Eric.
Right.
He said, look, there used to be these little red flags where you could see typos in the emails, or you could look at it and you could tell that the email was from some weird country. But the AI proliferation in the scams has cleaned all that up. What are some red flags that should tell you, okay, this is not, I need to question this. This may not be real.
That's a really good point. And I've been saying for some time that thanks to AI and deepfakes, trust has become a very uncommon commodity. So we have to be very careful, whether it's a call from, I think Bob gave a quick example of a call from your daughter saying, I got in a car wreck. And then you're talking to the public defender who says, you need to wire me $2,000 or she's going to spend the next 2 weeks in jail. Or it's this belief, right? Because this is the thing that AI is doing. As we see more and more of it, people are not even believing what's true because they think it might be AI. So what can you do? The first thing is never fall for urgency. These scams are always going to try to put you in a position where there's urgency to do something right now, and you can't wait, and you can't stop and take a breath and think. And like Bob said earlier, the best thing you can do is stop, take a breath, and reach out to a friend and say, does this sound right? The other thing is, if it sounds too good to be true, there's no way it's true. Just assume that it's a scam and then try to find a way to see if it is true. And you can do that through what we call like a second level verification. Reach out directly, in this case, to the voting registration administration, and then say, hey, is this true? Is this real? Always call with a line that you know is real, right? Or a way of communicating that because you've researched and looked up that this is their official number, as opposed to ever using anything that comes to you unsolicited. And that's just the world we're in right now.
Yeah. Speaking of too good to be true, we've cited this number before, over $16 billion lost to internet criminals in the U.S. Last year alone, 33% rise. Well, of that $16 billion, according to the FBI, 6.5 is from investment fraud. And I bet a lot of those investment offers do seem too good to be true. So something to watch out for. Victor from Overbrook is on the line and has a story to share. Victor, you're on Studio 2. What's your perspective?
Good afternoon. My kids are 18 and 19, and I just wanted to say that at their high school, which was a private high school, they both had internet safety courses that taught them how to avoid scams and also things like sexting and that kind of thing. And I think it's something that's really important, along with financial literacy in high schools, to teach kids how to do this. I remember in the 80s when I was growing up, and they did the big campaign about seatbelts. And everybody said, go home and tell your parents they have to wear your seatbelts. And all I know is I always wore my seatbelt and, yelled at my dad and mom to wear theirs. And eventually they got the message. So I think if you teach the kids in high school, they'll tell their parents, they'll tell their grandparents, and that's a good first step, I think.
I like that call from Victor. However, I will say, we have to take cyber security training at work, and sometimes you do roll your eyes a little bit. You're like, is this really working? I do this once a quarter. Does this actually sink in? And sometimes I'm a little skeptical of education is the answer if we don't actually change the systemic problems. But Bob, I'm curious for your take on more formalized education as an answer to the problem here, or will we kind of some percentage of us always fall back into these traps because that's human nature? Your thoughts, Bob?
Well, I'm glad to hear your skepticism, which I share. I do think that it's a trap for large companies that are used. It's a misdirection play. I would say large companies that are used for crimes to say, oh, we need to do education. We'll pay for some pamphlets. However, of course, education can play a role, and teenagers. You pointed out earlier, and I think this is going to surprise a lot of people. But while the consequences for elderly people who fall for scams are more severe because they're older and they often can lose almost all of their life savings or have it stolen from them, but younger people are actually more frequent victims of crimes. Mm-hmm. And so there are crypto crimes, for example, ravaging Instagram right now, and it usually begins with an account takeover. So you don't get a message from an unexpected person. You get a message from a friend, a longtime friend, who says suddenly, hey, I just invested in this new crypto coin. You should do it too. So I think training for young people is really important. And I interviewed the family of a young man who, a terribly horrible story, who was the victim of a sextortion crime and ultimately took his life a couple of months ago. And I can tell you that episode disturbed me for weeks. These stories are very, very sad. I just read about another example of this happening just a couple of days ago. And that's the kind of thing that we really need to educate young people about. And that story is so deeply about shame. And somebody went from nowhere to a contact to within 3 hours of taking their own lives because of what happened in a sextortion scam. And so we do need to do all of these things. And education is actually an important component.
Wow. I want to bring in another caller. We have Marita from Flemington on the line. Marita, you're on Studio 2. I hope I said your name right. What's your story?
It's not a story. It's very simple. There's a function on most phones, on my Android, and I think on all phones. It's an app, and you can put it in, and it says screen call. And if your system doesn't recognize the number,
and we lost Marita there, but
don't answer the phone is a perfectly good piece of advice nowadays.
And,
really, yeah.
And I want to throw this out there because Alan from Bridgeton says, why can't telecommunications companies stop spam callers? I mean, especially, I'm a journalist. Sometimes I get calls from people who are not in my contacts, and sometimes I answer. So I just wonder, are there protections that people can employ that would keep some of these scammers away? And I guess, Eric, you could comment. Yeah.
Sure. You can add your phone number to the do not call registry, and it won't really do a lot of good. It'll stop some of the spam, the legitimate spam, but unfortunately not the criminal spam. The best thing you can do is like Bob said, don't answer the call. Now I don't have an Android, I have an Apple. And they have this great new feature where you can ignore it. It goes to voicemail, and you can, in real time, see the voicemail on your phone in text. I love this because then I can decide whether I want to answer or not. But my rule is never to answer a phone call that I don't recognize, that's not in my contacts. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail. And never, ever respond to a text. You will get texts all day long that just say, hey, or I missed you at the barbecue, or hey, how's it going? We saw each other last week at the party, or just random things. These are smishing attacks. It's a text phishing attack that are trying to find polite people who respond. And when you respond, they will get you into a long conversation. They're looking for lonely people. They're looking for people who are polite, and they're looking for people who need a friend. And that can be an incredible gateway to romance fraud, to a financial pig butchering attack, to so many other ways of scamming you.
As we get ready to wrap up, where is all this heading? What's the frontier of cybercrime? I have this great quote from Bruce Schneier at Harvard. It says, "Watch where the computers go, that's where the crime goes." Well, we have self-driving cars now. I mean, where computers are really everywhere. Yeah. Real quick, Erica, what's the next wave?
Certainly, I think cybercrime is going to grow. This year, we're going to see, and into 2026, we're going to see an explosion of deepfake attacks. It's going to make it much harder to detect these crimes. Cybercrime has grown to over $14 trillion in this year. By next year, it'll be 18, and the following year, over 20. That makes it larger than the third largest economy on Earth. And so what I think technology has to do to respond is to use our own AI to defend against it. And I will bet within the next number of months, we're going to be seeing companies that provide some sort of layer that we install that is a deepfake detector. That's where a lot of the cybersecurity companies are going. And so when you're on your phone and you get a call, it'll pop up and say something like 98% deepfake.
The cat and mouse game never ends. Eric ONeill, former FBI counterintelligence operative and author of Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime. Thank you so much for your insights this hour.
Thanks, Avi. Thanks, Cherry.
And same to you, Bob Sullivan, host of the AARP podcast, The Perfect Scam. Bob, invaluable stuff. Really appreciate your time.
Can I steal 10 seconds from you? Because people don't have anyone to talk to. AARP offers a free helpline at 1-877-908-3360. You can call and ask, is this a scam? And It's free to anyone. You don't have to be a member.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our producers, Debbie Builder, Andreas Copes, and Hazel Mae Bryant. Thanks to Mike Schiffler, our visual producer, and to Al Banks and Tina Calicay, who engineered today's show. Our executive producer is Kevin McCory from Studio 2 here at WHYY in Philadelphia. I'm Cherry Gregg.
I'm Avi Wolfman-Arent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Tomorrow at noon on Studio 2, I will be grateful for you, Avi Wolfman-Arent, and for you, our listeners at home. Ahead of Thanksgiving weekend, we want to share some gratitude with you or help you find things in your life to be thankful for when it gets dark at 4 p.m.
We want to share gratitude with some friends of the show, including you out there. What are you grateful for this year? Do you maybe need some help with finding gratitude? Email studio2@whyy.org and tune in tomorrow at noon. Coming up next, it's Here and Now.